and welcome to our whatever number podcast this is. So I'm Tuesday Forrest. I'm one of the vice presidents, and we'll just go around the room and introduce everyone again. Just start, Connor?
No.
Oh.
I'm Connor, so I'm the president here till June. Hello.
Carter?
Yeah, Carter Fitzpatrick, one of the vice presidents here, and I use they, them pronouns.
And then Anth.
Hi, Anthony, one of the vice presidents. My school is GTA, and hi.
Cool. So I thought we'd start off with what's currently going on. What is big things that are happening at the university and what we've been doing as officers. So at the moment, we are currently going into Speak Week, which is really cool stuff, and we hope that loads of people get involved. We've also got LGBT plus History Month, and the leadership race nominations are open and have been open for a while, so get nominating. And then we'll just go around officer updates. Who would like to start?
Sure. I know we spoke about this last time, but we've finally got circuit gone. I had a week off, so that was great. We've done a lot of interviews, I guess. So the past 2 weeks we've been doing interviews for 2 university roles. So we've been interviewing as a team. We had the Pro Vice Chancellor of Education, and people might be like, who is that? Why do I care? And actually, they're the person who is in charge of your whole academic experience. They do everything from your lectures, your teaching, what goes on in your course, what kind of softwares you need, everything there. Everyone sits below them, and they're like the crucial being to your soul. And I guess the main thing we were looking for really in interviews was someone who's going to get involved with us and kind of listen to the issues that come out of the course, because everyone's always like, yeah, we did this so well, and it's like, yeah, but you never get anything good without the grit. So you need to kind of listen to that and make sure that that's heard. And then we also had our interviews with a director of learning and teaching, which is basically the same kind of thing, but just below that person, and they focus on the core behind the learning and what really matters to students in terms of learning styles, and then what you kind of get out of the course as well. It's not only how you're taught, but what you take away with you going into the job industry. But yeah, so those were all the things we did last week.
Cool. Who wants to go next?
I don't mind.
Yeah.
So one of the things I've been working on is a lot of representation. So as part of that, I've been working on our student networks a lot, with Tuesday as well. We've been trying to just really boost them, get them active again, give people a space to be with others like them. So they're different to a society in that kind of way. So a lot of that is, it's kind of important, but it's not something that we're having the most ease with. So if you would like to get involved in one of our networks, please do. They would be very good if you could. They're good, really. So I've been doing a lot of work on those. Also with LGBT stuff, because obviously it's History Month now. I'm part of the LGBT corporate group with the university, which we look at a little bit of training and awareness and other things that they do. So all the university events that are being put on for this month, we've had input in as a union, so they're pretty good. And then just kind of bits and pieces elsewhere with representation. It's just literally bits and pieces. So I'll do a bit of nursing representation, of meeting of like other unions and what they've been doing and stuff like that. So it's a little bit all over.
Cool.
Awesome. A couple of things I've been working on. So I've had some real push recently regarding the mature parent and carer groups. I've had to really help with navigating that and making sure they get the best help they can get from the university and get their voice heard, and really push for things that might help them, because they're suffering probably the most in this lockdown, as I think we could all agree. Trying to study whilst then have 3 kids to teach, and then potential disabled or disadvantaged adults or whatever. It's all a bit tense for them, so they needed as much as they could in terms of support. We arranged a meeting with regs and regulations for them, and yeah, that was a big deal. I now have one of the network leads in one of the meetings I had with regards to something called Family Friendly Campus, which is sort of like a movement we've got going on, where key players within the university get together and discuss how can we improve the campus for families. And it's a big deal, because I think if you could open up the campus to more to be more family friendly, you don't just open up the campus to student parents, you then open it up to anyone else, like the public, anyone. You provide more of an atmosphere and a culture and a kind of vibe going on, and I think that's something we really need to work on here at Staffs. So that's quite a key one, and it's really nice to have someone at a network lead in that meeting and discussing those points with us and what might be more beneficial. And the beautiful thing about that was this particular individual had been through the whole process, had been through university, and had a child who went to the nursery here, and then grew up basically around a university. So it's quite nice to see that sort of evolution of where it is, where it's been, where it is, and where it's going. It's sort of like a big deal, really. A second thing I've been working on is mine's gone blank. Bucks. Been working with Bucks again. So we had a key meeting actually last week about what the situation is regarding Bucks and what they think they might be doing regarding third term, and whether they're going to put anything on, or whether it's the right thing to do. The kind of conclusion was that we're going to have to wait till tonight, which is a bit annoying, because if they just planned the meeting at the end of this week, it'd been perfect, because then we could have ideas to put to the table and be like, okay, great, well, could we maybe wing this, maybe put on something here or there for students, but it didn't get that far, unfortunately. A big key question I asked was what we're going to do about alumni who didn't get to play this year. Do we allow them to come back? I outright asked the CEO that question on behalf of our students, and he was like, well, we've discussed it in a couple of key meetings, but in conclusion, no. However, it was always something we definitely considered, and you should know that we considered it. And then someone else piped in and was like, oh, by the way, yeah, we definitely had it in this meeting, and it's just too much, it's too complicated. And to be quite honest, I think that's a bit of a cop out, because they fell back on, what about last year's alumni who didn't get to play? Last year's alumni did play, like which is a bit annoying. They got at least half a season out of it. Like, you can't really use that as a cop out not to do the extra work, but hey, it is what it is. So that was like one of the key actions and key things I got asked to present. I then have a review at the end of this week. So I have a review on Thursday, I think it's 10 to 12, where we all come back together, me and Charlotte, who is the chair of the sabbaticals for Bucks. We'll meet and we'll discuss what we do next, what can we do with someone from Bucks, essentially, and what came out of that meeting. So that's this week. So that's something else I've been working on. I've also been working around getting on in touch with departmental reps and the course reps, trying to get in touch with them, keep them sort of updated, and just tell them they're okay. I call them welfare checks. I just ring them up and be like, hi, it's a welfare check, this is who I am, this is what I'm about, this is what three key things that are going on right now at the union that could benefit you to tell your students. So one of them would have been the COVID response fund, or relief fund, I think it's called. The other one, the next one would have been leadership races coming up. You might want to be aware. You might want to put yourself forward, considering you've been involved with us and very engaged. And I think the third one was like mental health and well-being. So I'm also, which leads on to my next point of things I've been working on, which sorry guys, which is which is the Living a Vida lockdown, which is like a big mental health and well-being push we had from the university. So that's a core group of people got put together at the beginning of the beginning of lockdown. It's like sort of going into lockdown, where we discuss what we can do to help engage you online with mental health and well-being, and providing that support kind of platform for people. And that's kind of like the key thing that I mentioned in those department reps and course rep catch-ups when I was calling around. So if you haven't had a call yet, stand by, you will be getting a call. And also, like I said, I might as well just shout out now, like I said, Living La Vida Loca is a thing we are putting on for you. It is on social media, it is there. Please get involved. It's there for you. Even if you don't want to get involved in the activities, use the facilities and use the support system, because that's what it's there for. And we're working really hard to try and make sure that it's there for you. And I feel like a lot of the time students get all pent up about it and don't really discuss it or talk to anybody about it, and then you say, oh, they would have here like some sort of support over here, but like the support's over here, and they don't really go looking for it. So it's like, because they feel too anxious to do that. So it's like, it's here in your face, living la vida loca. It's on the staff's university website and social medias. Please use it. Please engage if you want to get involved. So, and if you don't, give us some feedback, because there might be some other ways we can engage and involve you. So it's something else I should probably put out there. But they're like some things I'm working on right now. So
cool. Some really cool stuff. Compared to you guys, mine is not necessarily as engaging and as other people might think, because I've been working on some sort of behind the scenes stuff, and I've been meeting a lot with regulations and compliance around the exceptional regulations. I've been involved in those conversations since January when we came back, and that's all out there now. Exceptional regs are a thing. Please make sure you read up on them, or contact your lecturers or your course leaders to make sure that you know what they mean for your course, because there are some differences depending on what course you're on. We have done a video, or I have done a video explaining the differences in some circumstances, but again, you still need to check with your course leaders, your course directors, lecturers, just to make sure what it means for you, so you don't lose out in the long run. Another cool thing that is really good for us is we've been able to raise the issues that parents and carers, students have been having in terms of this new lockdown to a national level. So as the delegates from Staffordshire University Students' Union to National Conference this year, we have written a motion to take to the National Conference asking the national movement to get involved and you know, make some change somewhere along the line. And this has been positively received, and it turns out we weren't the only person to think about this, so that means it's a positive, and it's important to a lot of people. So yeah, that's my updates for the week. So now we're going to move on to some more fun stuff with you guys, and ask some questions on some themes that are going on. So on the topic of the leadership race, as a student, what were your expectations of being an officer, or an officer that had been elected at the time? What did you expect them to do as their job role, or what were you expecting to do coming into the role? And I think that would be really great to talk to some students, talk to some students, talk about it in this podcast to get more students involved and maybe think, oh, that's right, that's for me, that's cool. So yeah, open floor to you guys.
I think the biggest assumption for an officer is, hey, look, they put on club nights. That's one of the biggest assumptions. It's like, okay, well, they have a minor, maybe a minor, like 1 or 2% input in club nights, because you go into it thinking, okay, I'm going to put events on, we're going to put loads of fun stuff on. And they're like, yeah, you do that. You have welcome week, you have those points through the year. But then you go in and actually it's like, okay, here's your calendar. So today you've got regs, tomorrow you've got accommodation, next week you've got fitness to practice. And it's like you go in expecting just like, don't get me wrong, it's a fun job, but you go in expecting just to plan events and put a bouncy castle on, I think is the biggest illusion, when actually you come in to solve issues and to get stuff done behind the scenes. I think the biggest thing you hear as an officer is we don't see you much because you're always in the office. And that's not a negative, but you're always busy either trying to send an email, or you're trapped in a room, not trapped, but you're in a room with university staff trying to get the right message across.
Yeah. I think for me, I was expecting it to be a busy role, but I don't think other people do. I think some people expect to go to the odd meeting here or there. They don't expect to be in some of these meetings that we do end up in. So I say that in a way, it sounds bad, but it's not. It's like you don't expect to be in conversations about my mind's gone blank now, but sort of software and, you know, new technologies. Like, you don't expect to be in those conversations about where things might be going, or being able to input into those conversations, which is absolutely amazing, because we get to take that student voice further through the university. But I think a lot of people expect the role to be in-house, just in the student union, when it's so much more than that, and there are so many more opportunities within the role of an officer that people don't expect. So That's my answer. If anyone else got anything different.
No, I think you just summed it up quite well.
What was the question? Just reiterate it again for me. Just
when you were a student, what was your expectation of the officer role? Either you going into it or someone you elected in the past going into it. What do you think? What did you expect them to do as an officer, or what it was?
I think it's an interesting one, because I guess for me, it's always about what was relevant to me at the time. So at the time, my issues were I was trying to get into the library at certain times of the day when I'd have like a massive gap between lectures and stuff, and I couldn't get access to it. But then very specific software was and kit equipment was all in one damn room that I couldn't get access to. And then you'd have esports come along, no offense to esports, and just take the room, but then they'd have like majority of the computers free, and there'd be like 3 students in there. So for me, I would expect that to go forward. If I complain about it to a union officer, say it was Tuesday, do you mind sorting this out for me? Chase it up, because it's just not on. And that's kind of what I'd expect. Now, the reality of that is, now looking at this side of the chair, is that you can't actually fix that. That's not something you have control over. You just have to ask the questions, which I think I think you'll see me say a lot of times. I can't give you a definitive answer. All I can do is ask the questions, get potentially the right people in the same room, and resolve that problem. Maybe. Now, if that, say, this hypothetical, is that the right word? That is the right word, right?
Yeah.
Tell me I'm smart. Okay, cool. This situation happened, and Tuesday got in the room with everybody. The university's just going to go, that's just our timetable. We've got nothing we can do. There's no other rooms in the room. There's nothing we can do about it. Sorry. We'll try to address it for maybe next year. And that's it. That's the conversation. And I think a lot of times as a student, I'll be a little bit frustrated going, hang on a minute, like, well, doesn't really resolve my problem. But the issue is that, and I think this is just an issue across the board, is that by the time we manage to resolve a situation, a lot of the time the turnaround's quite slow, unfortunately, and then it's not relevant to that person anymore, which then becomes kind of like, oh, okay, well, it's what it is. And I think that's, you don't understand that as a student, and I think it's quite hard to understand it as a student unless you decide to go for the officer role and become an officer. I remember I had some issues I'd go to Connor with in November and be like, sort this out now, and Connor were like, oh, can I ask the question? And now I get that, because I think it was something to do with like, why don't we allow, I think it's something along the lines of, I think it was in November, why can't we allow alumni to get housed in Portland or something like that for the duration of their stay? Because, like, I don't know if anyone's aware, but you do a lot of alumni events towards the end of the year when varsity happens, where you sort of get all the old players in, and they'll like come and see the awards nights, and it's a bit of a celebration, and it's like, well, come in and just house them. And it's not quite that easy. It's really not that easy. And then it's the finances, and then it's the damages potentially, and it's like, it's really not a cut dry. But as a student, I was like, well, that's just a simple solution to me. You could potentially make an extra couple of quid, but then by the time you turn that around, go through the process, get everything health and safety figured out, it's just too many liabilities, too many issues, too many potentials that just become just too risky, really. So I don't know, that was a very long-winded answer, Tuesday. I'm so sorry.
No, I think that's a really good example, actually, because I can tell you before my first year as an officer, I was the exact same. I'd be like, this is an issue that I've told someone about, and nothing's been done about it in this week. But obviously, once you come into the role, you realise a week is a second as such, like in this sort of job role. So you might have an issue coming to you on Monday, or someone might have asked a question to you on a Monday, but it might not be till the following Monday that you've actually made some progress on it. But that's not because of people don't want to hear about it. It's because everyone is so busy, especially this year with everything going on. I think there needs to be, there is some expectations from students where they understand that it is a lot more of a difficult time, but there are still some students who are expecting you to be a little bit quicker on the mark, and it's just like, I'm trying, but I just can't meet this person. So I think that was a really interesting point. Yeah. Next question. in previous years, what has made you vote for the people you did in the leadership race? For me, this is an easy one. I always read manifestos. I always vote for people who bring up real issues that are relevant to me and my course and my interests. So if someone was to come to me and go, I think that there needs to be sanitary towels in every bathroom in the uni, that's me, so I would vote for that. But if it was, I don't know, I can't even think of something that doesn't align with me, I wouldn't necessarily pick that. But that, for me, that's why I vote, and I've got to put my faith in someone who can accurately, effectively represent me through the academic year, and I think that's why I voted the way I have in the past. But what about you guys?
I have a specific example. So when I first voted in the leadership race 2 years ago, I think I'd literally just been taken on as a team member for the union, knew absolutely nothing about leadership race, didn't know it existed. And then suddenly I'll cross my Facebook feed with these posters and videos of someone mimicking The Greatest Showman. And I was like, what on earth is this? What? And I had to read through it and I watched the video and I was like, okay, I don't know who you are, but this is cool. I'm going to share your stuff just because I like it. I still had like no real idea of what it was. Just started sharing all of Scott's stuff because I liked it and it sounded cool and what he was saying was good as well. I think in the end I was able to look at a few manifestos as well. I didn't read them fully, but I should have done. And the website didn't work properly for me, and it literally only let me vote for one person, which was very wrong and it shouldn't have done that to me. But it turned out Scott William Smith was my one vote. So the person whose posters and videos I'd been sharing, he was the only one who got my vote, unfortunately. But no, they just stood out to me a lot.
What about you guys? How have you voted in the past, or what's influenced your vote in the past?
I think for me, it's like kind of what you said in terms of relatability would be the main word. So not necessarily. I voted in every single leadership race since I've been here. This is my 6th year. I've been here a while.
Same, Connor.
I think for the first 2 years I voted, was one of my team members from rugby. Then after that, I was on someone else's team. They asked me to help them campaign. But obviously, you vote as many times as you can, really, and that's the key thing. I think people should take notice to as well. Like Carter said, if you have an issue, but you can vote for as many candidates as there is. So combining what everyone said, going through the manifestos and look what matters to you. So if someone is saying, these lab times are full on terrible, they shouldn't be like this, they should be these times. Is that relevant to you? Is that gonna affect you in a positive way? It may affect you in a negative way, but that's probably not going to happen. But if these labs are going to be open 24 hours instead of 12 hours, it's probably going to be good for you to vote for that person because they're going to push for it. And it's just, I think it's just down to relatability. A lot of candidates do run on the same things because a lot of students have the same relevant issues. There's always those one or five candidates who have something that's just a tiny bit different and it's got a spark to an idea, and you sit there and sometimes you can envision that working, and it's just great because when you do see it, it's amazing. Some things five years ago I would never have expected to be here now, but they are.
Yeah.
I guess it moves on to me. I think for me, it's just relatable. It's all about what your circumstances, what your situation is, and what it is that's relevant to you. And I think, I'm a big sports advocate. I love sports, so I'm always looking in manifestos for how are you going to improve my sports engagement over the duration of my experience, my time here. So my experience at university, because that's going to be key to me, and I think that matters across the board for anyone's interests. So I think that's one of those things you definitely got to read the manifestos and whoever fits your best interests, because that'll be the person you want to vote for. But I also think you give people due diligence, I think is the right word, by reading their manifestos, because at the end of the day, like, It takes a lot to write that up. It takes a lot for you to, because you got to remember, half the things you're probably going to want to change are already in action.
Yeah.
And that's the hard part, because all of a sudden you just don't know it. You just haven't looked at it before. You're like, why is that just not being sorted? And then you'll actually look into it, do a little bit of digging. You're like, yeah, it's there. It's just in a form of a different name or a different support system or a different style or a different model. And that's the key thing. So you have to really, like, I think if you read the manifesto, you'll see pretty quickly the people who've done their research and who hasn't. And I think that's the key one there. So, I think for me, I'm always seeing who's done that extra bit of work. I'm always seeing who's done the bit of, oh, that's relevant to me, but then his is relevant to me. So who's done that little bit extra of like, oh, hang on a minute, how would you change that, for one? And two, have we already got something in place that's just being rebranded? Because if it's being rebranded, we don't need it. We just don't need it. We just need to go and sit in a room with somebody and go, maybe we should move it in this direction. Problem solved. So it's key, I think. So just to answer that question, that's a big thing for me, I think.
I think Anth just made a really good point as well. It's all well and good people in the manifesto saying, okay, we're going to change this. The second question is, okay, how? What are you going to do? It's okay saying, yeah, we need more representation with sports teams. It's like, okay, so what are you going to do with that? What are you going to do to improve it? It's like, I don't know. It's like, okay, and then you can tell who's put thought into it and who's just wrote it, and you can't blag it. Those things stand out immediately. And I think that's really good where we've got the hustling in, because it makes people think and sit and question themselves. And every candidate thinks, okay, well, I've put this idea, so now I need to say why I've done it. And it separates those from who have thought about their manifesto to those who have not maybe got quite an idea where they want to go with it yet.
Yeah. Like, I will completely own up that my manifesto in my first leadership race was so vague because I just didn't know what to put in it. Like, the advice I was given was to keep it short and sweet so people didn't get bored reading it. So I was like, well, the things I want to raise is more than a couple of lines. So I had to keep it short and sweet and vague so that people would be like, so she can cover all these things if she's elected, kind of thing. But I agree with you. I think it's always great to see a manifesto that raises an issue, but then goes, this is how I'm going to fix it, or this is how I'm going to address it, or this is how I plan to make this a thing. I think is a really good habit to get into when writing about, this is what I want to achieve. So yeah, I agree with you guys on that one. Yeah. Next question is going into our next theme, which is LGBT plus History Month. So this is a quick fire one. Who is an important figure in LGBT plus history, whether that be to you or just in generic or general, and why? If like short and sweet if possible, because we can touch on it later in a later question. Who would like to go first? I'm going to say Anth, because you stole mine when we were talking about it earlier.
Did I? I'm so sorry. The thing is, he is like, so before, if you want to know, mine's Alan Turing, right? He's a big deal. He quite literally won us the war in a lot of ways. Well, he did. He won us the war. And he was famous for being gay. He was famous, and he got crucified for it. And I think they even did a castrate him with it, chemicals or something like that as well. And it's just a really like disgusting story about a man who saved us from annihilation, which it just baffles me. But he's such a big figure on really starting that conversation of like, why is this guy being penalized? He's done all these amazing things, and yet he still at the time he was completely like rejected from society, and it's just not okay. And I think he really was sort of like one of the start and moving factors of like how are we as a society, how can we look at ourselves and go, that's okay? And I think he really helped that. And I mean, the guy's insane. Like we're talking to each other now via a computer. This guy was one of the starting, cryptologists, logicians, scientists in the world to build one. And this guy really helped make a difference, and that's such a big deal. And he needs the recognition, and he forever will be recognized as one of the greatest people on the planet. So, sorry for stealing. Didn't mean it.
I did have a backup. That's fine.
It was just a really good movie. It was a really good movie as well. And if you want to watch it, watch The Imitation Game. It's phenomenal piece of movie work. So.
I might answer your question for you in one of the later questions as well.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like me to go next? Because I got one.
Hold on, let's hear your backup.
Funnily enough, and it's probably people will be like, oh, but mine is Lady Gaga, for the simple reason that she has advocated for not just gay rights and lesbian rights, but she's also brought the forefront to the conversation of bisexual rights and bi invisibility, because she herself is bisexual and has openly questioned other journalists and stuff. So like, are you gay or are you straight? And she's like, no, I'm bi. And they're like, so you're not sure? And she's always sort of pushed against that narrative to bring those rights and that visibility to the forefront. And with her platform as well, she's made it a global conversation rather than just an American conversation. So that's why I think she's important. Although, it's a more of a recent thing, I still think it's very important. So, yeah, over to you, Connor and Carter, if you guys have got one.
I would go with what we were talking about earlier, which was Freddie Mercury. I haven't got a plain reason about it. I think he's just an icon. I think what you said earlier was a great point. Now, the assumption of Freddie Mercury was that he was a gay singer in a band, when actually he wasn't. He was a bisexual singer who was an icon. He went through a lot in his private life before even dealing with that. His upbringing was not an easy upbringing. If you've ever watched the film Bohemian Rhapsody, you learn a lot behind it as well. So actually, I would really recommend people watch that just to learn a bit about it, because it's such a good film going into the detail behind Queen and where he came from himself.
Yeah.
Cool. That leaves me. My person's not very well known, I'm not sure, and is very recent, but Asia Kate Dillon. So they're a non-binary actor who played a non-binary character in Billions, which was quite a big budget show, I think. And it's important to me because my dad was watching Billions at a time where my family was still unsure of, does non-binary exist? Are you making this up for attention? And I think my dad being so in love with that show and seeing a non-binary character so regularly being played by a non-binary actor, I think that really helped him. So it's a really important thing to me that they got that role and that they could do it so openly. And I think they've it was some kind of award show, like the Emmys or something. They were asked, what do you want, best actor, best actress, and they started to push to de-gender the awards, which was quite cool. But I think they do a lot of work in normalizing it in the acting industry, which is brilliant. So that's mine.
Cool. So leading on from that, what progress do you think still needs to be made in terms of LGBT plus rights and culture? Now, I don't mind going first on this one because I understand that it might be a little bit difficult to talk about, but I touched on it in my previous answer, and that is sort of the invisibility within the community and the sort of microaggressions, aggressions within the community towards each other. And it's quite common because I have gay family and they have had conversations about there's no such thing as bi and bi is just greedy, based on early noughties and late 90s television ingrained that belief into their head. And that's a generational change that still needs to happen because it's still very prominent in the community that bi people are not necessarily accepted. And there's this theory called is it straight shadow or straight I can't think of the term, but it's about being with a bi person and being tainted by being in a straight relationship at some point, and I think that's really unhelpful in terms of acceptance and love in our generation as such. So that, for me, that's important and a change that still needs to happen. And I think that does start with us and educating as we go forward. So do you guys have any others?
I think everyone will say awareness, and it's like, okay, what does that mean? What does awareness mean? It's like, okay, well, my friend's gay. It's like, okay, that's great. What do you know about them? What do you know about kind of what they've been to? And it's kind of going with them on that. So everyone's like, okay, I'm an ally because I have friends who are gay. And it's like, okay, that's great, but what does that mean? What do you do to help them? would you stand up for them if someone said something, or would you just stand by and talk to them after? Because they're two very different things. And I think normalising it is a big thing at the moment. So a lot of cities around the UK are either huge allies or the complete opposite. We're in a position right now where we're trying to deal with it bit by bit. But every time there's LGBT History Month, you'll read a different article of someone attacked on the way home from the festival or something like that, and it's not nice to read at all. But there's always someone who's got a gripe against something, and it's the little things like that of how do you counter it. And I don't have the answer myself. That's the thing. I don't think anyone has a straight answer for it. But I also think it's a heavy time game. I think it's slowly, piece by piece, year on year, working. Because you wouldn't have said 10 years ago things the way they are now.
I mean, we have massive drag competitions on TV nowadays, and you wouldn't have expected that in the UK 10 years ago, kind of thing. And I think that's a massive progress for us, especially that now that we have Drag Race UK as well, which is the UK specific variant of the show. I think is massive progress in the UK as such. It's a shame that there are still some people who are quite vocal about how they feel about it, but at the end of the day, it's on TV. You don't have to watch it if you don't want to. So yeah, I think that's a really good point.
Anth, would you like to go?
I am for sure no expert in this area, but I think and I'm probably going to cause some controversy here, but it's fine. I think the extremism of LGBTQ needs to leave. I think once you get rid of that extremism, and by all means, it always happens in any change, in any sort of new phase of societal sort of acceptance and change that's really quite really life-changing in terms of how we function as a society, which is, you saw it with gay rights, you see it now with LGBTQ. There's like this sort of like this big hill, and going up this hill there's this constant battle of extremism, and then all of a sudden it'll just die off, and all of a sudden it's not that big of a deal anymore. And I think that's the bit I can't wait for, because then it's accepted. Then at that point, that's the bit you go, okay, people aren't so antsy about what it is, because the people just accept that's how it is now, and that's who people are, and that's just the way we move as a society, and that's how we grow as a society. And I think once, I'd like to see, you see so much toxicity on social media over it, and I think the second you get rid of that sort of really high level of extremism is the moment you'll know that actually a comment on Twitter hasn't blown up and 100,000 people aren't tearing each other apart anymore. I think that will be a beautiful sight to see, because then all of a sudden you can see that actually things are now accepted, they're better, people aren't so sensitive about their beliefs, because they just accept that that's how things are now, and this is how it's going to be. And then it'll be something else, then it'll be something, I don't know, it'll be some other new form of growth as a society that will have the same trigger, and it'll have the same issue, and it'll have the same sort of trajectory, I think is the right word. So I think once, where that needs to go is, I can't wait to see that happen, because that's where I think you'll know, okay, this is okay now. Like, what, can we just let go of our sensitivities and just move on as a society? Who cares at the end of the day? And that sort of, and not who cares as in you're not relevant, who cares as in like, we love each other, man, let's just deal with it. Like, it is what it is. Like, we didn't wish ill on anybody, So anyway, that's why. Let the controversial comments below happen.
It wasn't too bad.
No, I thought it was a very interesting sort of viewpoint, and I agree. Like, I think there is a lot more acceptance that needs to happen once it's more widely accepted, as you say, and it's the norm. There is no way for negativity to be there. And I think you said about extremism, I think gatekeeping is a big issue in a lot of communities and in representative communities, and I think gatekeeping is something that also needs to go, because it doesn't help people learn in any context. So, and that then leads on to the last question, which is, one thing you think everyone should know or read up on in LGBT plus history? I think it's safe to say always start with Stonewall and the riots. And I think it's also important for people to read up on Marsha P. Johnson, who obviously is a trans woman of colour, who started the Stonewall movement as such back in the day. And I think that's always a good place to start with LGBT history, because it all follows on from there in the UK and America and globally. So yeah, that's my starting point.
I don't know a lot of history around it. I'm not a reader. I'm a boring person. I watch videos, I watch and play games. I don't read. So in terms of that, I don't know a lot. But one thing I think everyone should know, and I think this is really important, is what questions to and to not ask. Because asking questions is never a bad thing unless they're offensive.
Yeah.
And I think people respect it more if you want to learn. If you sit there and you don't know a genuine answer to something and you ask a question, I guarantee you 99% of the LGBT community will sit down and go through it with you. If you're genuine, they're happy to sit there and explain what it means. As long as you're not upsetting people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I want to raise a point on that. So obviously, of course, yes, I absolutely agree with that. But I think you also have to take into consideration that it's not always their job. So like me explaining being non-binary in my existence daily is exhausting. But when I get question after question, they're like, oh, what about this? What about this? What about this? Like, I'll sit and answer them because I'm teaching someone. But it is so so like you wouldn't think it would be, but when you have to go over it again and again, and then you face some hate and you're like, okay, sure, whatever, it's just ask questions, but also take it upon yourself, do some research, ask, or instead of asking them the questions, ask, do you have somewhere that I can learn more? I want to learn more, please help with that, rather than doing the labor for me. I think that's always good as well, is making sure that you take responsibility for your learning as well.
100% agree with that, because I think there is an onus on that person who's asked you the questions to be able to retain that information and pass that on, so that if someone was to ever come to you with that question again, you don't necessarily have to answer it. They can go, I've learned about this recently, do you mind if I take this up? And you can go, that's spot on, or I'd maybe think about this bit next time. But I think that kind of collaborative learning's a really good thing as well. I just thought, because I know you guys mentioned films earlier as well, like if there's a film that you think people should watch in terms of LGBT history as well, you can include that instead of what things should you read up on. So
Pride. I can't remember what year it was, but the Pride film about I think it's the Welsh mining strike, and how there was the lesbian and gay alliance with it. I just love that film. Honestly, it gets me so riled up every time I watch it that I just want to go and do stuff. Like, I've watched it before and then I've gone to literally do random stuff, like be on the bone marrow register. I went to try and give blood afterwards. I just don't know what it is about that film, but it really activates the activism in me.
Yeah.
It's just a really good film.
Cool. And then last but not least, Dan.
I mean, like I said, I think the Imitation Game is a great thing, but it is very much not oriented. I don't think it's overly about the topic. It's more about what he was doing and what he was trying to achieve. But I still think it's just worth every penny if you watch it. Another film, I can't say I've watched it, but has come to mind is Moonlighting. Have you ever heard of it?
Mm-hmm.
It's like a storyline about a gay lead, essentially, who's a black guy in the society at the time where it was sort of a bit dodgy. I think I haven't seen it. I just literally got recommended to me last night, so I was just like, that's something. I think it was on Netflix. So I was like, okay, maybe that's something I need to be watching. But that's such a big deal. I think just go watch something, because at the end of the day, you're only going to learn. So
yeah. I think some old classics that I'll just throw out as films is Priscilla, Queen of the Desert is a really good film looking at drag and exploration of family within gay culture, things like that. I think that's a really good, and there are some scenes to do with drugs as well, which I think is a really good thing to include, considering there is still stigma around around that kind of stuff within the gay community as well. I won't lie, I was brought up on like LGBT sort of film and media and stuff. So yeah, like there's loads that I could just reel off, but I don't want to bore people. But yeah, has anyone else got any film or TV recommendations before we?
It wasn't Moonlighting, it's Moonlight. It's Moonlight, it's called.
You said Bohemian Rhapsody earlier, didn't you, Connor?
Yeah, I think I love Queen anyway, but I think it's great to look into people's backstories behind things as well, rather than just saying, okay, this is what that means.
Yeah.
Because like I was saying, you kind of got to look what people go through to get where they are. Because I guarantee it's not a straight road. That could go for anyone. But while we're on the LGBT topic, that's a very bumpy road for some people. So it's kind of good to kind of go along that path. If one thing I was going to say earlier, I think one good thing for me was my mum came to university when my sister moved here at Staffs a few years ago. And my mum wasn't ignorant. She just never had any of that kind of community around her before. She worked as an accountant in the college in an office, so she hadn't been a massive part of it. And then Sabrina, who we worked with, came along, and we were just talking to my mum about things. And my mum was just new to it all, and it was just flowing in. But she'd never heard of any of it before. She just didn't know. And then she took it in, and slowly, bit by bit, every time she comes back now, she learns something new. And it's just nice to see that kind of progression. And it's just it's quite different to see the age gap. Not calling my mum old. Mum, what you watch this? I'm not calling you old. You look 30. But I'm seeing my mum every time she comes to university now, learning something different, asking new questions. It just kind of shows what happens if someone starts a conversation.
Yeah, I think that's a really good point, actually, you saying that, because I think there's this expectation of university to all be only about academic learning, when actually your whole time at university you're learning not just about yourself, you're not just learning your course, you're learning about other people, and you're learning about the world around you. And you don't even have to be a student here. Like when your parents come visit, they will learn things. And I think that's such a good thing about university. It is education, but not just your course. There is so much more to it. But just gonna round things up now, because I realise we've been going a while, guys. I'm sorry. But just some reminders. Leadership race nominations are open. So that is for department reps, course reps, student group elections too. So if you want to be on a committee for your student group, nominate yourself, as well as the officer elections will be happening. Have you guys got anything to push?
Proud to be Staffs Awards. Put people down. You know, your friends, your lecturers, you know, union staff, you know, we're pretty cool. If you think people have done a good job, just pop their name down. Look at the awards we've got, you know. Have a look. There's got to be someone who shoots a story. Go online, put people down, and then we'll have a cool ceremony online. Yeah. Not in person, sadly.
Cool. Anth and Carter, anything to push?
I don't think so.
Well, I'm going to go in and mention it for the third time this evening. Say evenings, bloody daytime, isn't it? Please, we have the Wellbeing support system there. It's all there for you to use. Please use it. And if not, please look on for the Living La Vida lockdown social media posts about getting involved, maybe getting engaged. If not, they'll guide you to somebody, or we'll guide you. If you look on our website, we've always got links to if you need anything specific in terms of whether that's financial help or support, or whether that's mental health support or anything like that. We'll guide you to the right place for that too. So please, if you need it, by all means, get in touch. That's what we're here for. I just want a little prompt to the course reps and the department reps as well. I know we're trying to get in touch with you via phone calls and trying to engage where we can, but it really does help if you engage back. That is a big deal. There's a couple of emails I sent out. Nobody's got back to me, and I need someone to help me, to help you essentially. And I think that goes for everyone here. Please get involved. That's what you sign up for as a course rep and a department rep. So that's something to be aware of if you are going to apply for it this year as well. Please use the platform for what it is. It's there to help your course experience over the next 3 years be better. So just take that in mind. So yeah, they're like key things. But yeah, shout out to my mature parent and carers out there. Thanks for putting up my video content. I'm always putting out videos and stuff for them. And if there's anything they want to throw at me to improve, or maybe wear a cool jumper, we've got a little in joke there about wearing certain jumpers in our meetings, let me know. So yeah, cheers.
Cool.
Oh, the test centres. We've got test centres still at Tuesday and Wednesday at LRV. Doesn't cost you a penny. Costs you 20 minutes, maybe 40. Depends how far away you live. But sign yourself up, walk down, get a test. Do good.
So, just a quick recap before we sign off. Leadership race, nominations are open. Proud to be staff. Get your stories in. Engage with Wellbeing, Living La Vida Lockdown, and Start to Success and OFS and all that good stuff. Reps, please talk to us.
Test centres?
Test centres, and then shout out to mature parent and carers. There we go.
Got it.